All right, mining giant BHP is considering offloading two of its coal mines in central Queensland as full-year profits slump to 4% to $11 billion. Meanwhile, the Coalition and Greens have their eyes on regional Labor Party seats to seize on the growing internal green warfare dividing the party. Resources Minister Keith Pitt slammed Labor's divisions and bickering over mining, saying it's costing regional jobs. He joins me now. Keith Pitt, thank you very much for joining us on Sky News across Australia tonight. Really appreciate your time. Look, what are your thoughts on this decision by BHP?
Gleeson, great to be with you. Live from the Albert Motel in Moree, I have to tell you. But look, the market is the market. So we know that thermal coal and met coal prices certainly have softened. We know BHP's making corporate decisions. I think it's disappointing, but obviously they're looking to sell those assets. And the thermal coal mine in New South Wales, my understanding, has potentially another 100 years of supply. So I think there's a combination of things which are affecting this. One, of course, is the ongoing stoush inside the Labor Party as to whether they actually stand for working people or not anymore. And I know Joel Fitzgibbon's out there making plenty of noise fruitlessly. And, of course, what happens in the future in terms of our plans for the country. As you know, the Nationals stand up for the resources sector. We stand up for working people. New South Wales, the state government's just put out a policy where they intend to not extend thermal coal mining in New South Wales. Best quality coal in the world, biggest coal port in the world at Newcastle. Some of these decisions are a bit hard to take at times.
Minister, you talk about the divisions within the Labor Party, the bickering over mining, and, we've got Fitzgibbon on one side, you've got Albanese. We just had Graham Richardson on, and Richo was quite vehement about this. He said Albanese just has to embrace coal, full stop. If he doesn't, they won't be in any way, shape or form competitive at the next election.
Gleeson, even if I can get him part of the way there to embrace gas, I mean, they don't even want to support a gas-led recovery. So, in this country, the Coalition wants more jobs. We want growth coming out of the corona pandemic. We want manufacturing back onshore, and to do that, we need competitive gas prices. Now, obviously, on both sides of the coin, you need suppliers who are making enough money to ensure that they're viable. We need manufacturers with a price that makes sure that they are internationally competitive. But the opposition continue to bicker and argue over energy when the reality is we just need to get on with it.
Keith, I wanted to talk to you about this simmering story about a bid by some people, the cancel culture, to rename a number of towns in Queensland, including Townsville, named after Robert Towns, Mackay, Russell Island. There's a list of those particular towns. These were people who were linked to the slave labour trade back in the 1800s. It's gaining a bit of momentum. I kicked off my show with the absurdity of it all. But how do we deal with this? I mean, you're a senior cabinet minister in the Morrison government. How do we deal with these ongoing, ubiquitous calls out there to change the way we do things? Names, places, towns, cheeses, beers, racehorses?
Well, I think those of us in public life need to call this for what it is. It's complete nonsense. I mean, if you forget your history, Gleeson, you're doomed to repeat it. I mean, this is one of the lessons we've learned over a long period of time. I live in Queensland. I mean, what's next? They want to take the Queen out of Queensland, I'm sure. Should we get rid of the sugar industry because of what happened many, many years ago around the Kanakas and the hard work that they did throughout the Queensland sugar fields? I mean, I'm fairly confident the people who live in Gladstone and Townsville and elsewhere aren't interested. Certainly the majority aren't interested in making changes to the name of their town that they're very proud of, and rightfully so.
Yeah. Look, I think a lot of people sitting at home tonight would think it's absurd. The problem is, of course, Keith, that they're getting momentum. And we're seeing statues being pulled down. We're seeing, as I said, a whole range of these particular organisations who are bowing to the pressure. You mentioned gas. Now, the ACCC gas report recently released. These gas giants, they're facing an export squeeze. How do we deal with that? And how important, as you mentioned earlier, is gas in the makeup of energy as we go forward? And I know you're a bit of a fan of nuclear as well.
Well, there's a couple of points here. I mean, at the moment, the world market is significantly suppressed in terms of gas price. The world oil price is low. It's mid-40s last time I checked. So, you know, there is an abundance at the moment. But the ACCC report has clearly identified that won't be sustained in the medium term. So we do need to continue to identify new resources in Australia. And once again, if we look at Victoria, where we know the Bass Strait, which has been a supplier for decades of cheap gas into Victoria, which has helped build their manufacturing industry, is declining. And we've had a Victorian state government that up until recently had a complete moratorium on gas exploration. Well, what happens when you don't explore is eventually you run out of gas supply. You have to look for it elsewhere. Now, if you look to transport from Queensland to Victoria, that costs a significant amount of money. That means manufacturers are no longer competitive. So the states need to do their part. The Commonwealth needs to do its part. But we are looking to gas as an interim supply. We're looking for gas as a gas-led recovery. I think there's a huge opportunity for Australian manufacturing if we can get the policy settings right.
All right, Keith Pitt, what are you doing in Moree?
I'm working my way through the Northern Basin on the way to the ACT for the sittings. Peter, as you know, the Premier is going to lock us out and lock us down on return. I think we're going from a zero corona environment to a zero corona environment. If she keeps this up, I think she'll want to cancel Christmas, which I think is unfortunate.